I gladly yield 5 minutes to my good friend, the gentleman from Missouri, currently chairs the Subcommittee on Information and Policy. And I am very, very happy to introduce the gentleman for 5 minutes, Mr. Clay.
Gentleman from Missouri is recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank the gentleman from American Samoa for yielding. And Madam Speaker, I rise to declare my absolute and unwavering opposition to the President's plan to escalate this tragic and unnecessary war. 4 years ago, I stood on the floor of this House to oppose the original force authorization resolution. At the time, some of my colleagues cautioned me that I was taking a risk by opposing the President and failing to support the war against terrorism. But I took that position because I believed then and still believe today that great nations do not start wars as a matter of policy. They exercise diplomacy and negotiation to avert threats and achieve security. The evidence that the administration presented did not clearly establish any imminent threat to our national security. I was convinced that invading Iraq without international support and without unequivocal evidence that Iraq was involved in 9/11 would dangerously drain our military strength, distract us from fighting the very real terrorist threat, and ultimately weaken our credibility around the world. Now we can see that the war in Iraq has emboldened our enemies and provoked the scorn of our allies. Madam Speaker, standing here 4 years later, I can only wish that my assumptions were wrong, that invading Iraq was somehow vital to our national security. We were told that there were weapons of mass destruction, and now we know there were no WMDs. We were told that Iraqi oil revenue would pay for this war, and now we know that that was only a pipe dream that has cost American taxpayers over $400 billion. We were told that our troops would be greeted as liberators, and now we know that was only wishful thinking based on neocon fantasies and not the facts. Today, American troops are embroiled in a bloody quagmire that has already resulted in over 26,000 American casualties. And now, just this past week, the Defense Department Inspector General reported that senior administration officials engaged in a deliberate misinformation campaign about al-Qaeda and Saddam Hussein. Now we have learned that officials in our government deliberately distributed altered intelligence assessments. Such a misinformation campaign is unconscionable and a greater threat to our national security than any act of terrorism. We are all familiar with the historian's observation that great nations are not conquered by outside forces until the nation has destroyed itself from within. I implore my colleagues to heed the lessons of history. Do not allow the politics of deception to distort reality. This administration is denying the facts. It has repeatedly misled the Congress and the American people and undermined our nation's integrity throughout the world. Now the President is asking Congress to register more support for a policy failure, escalating the military violence in Iraq by injecting 21,000 more U.S. troops into a civil war. This reflects nothing more than this administration's obstinate refusal to face present realities. And a vast majority of Americans want a responsible end to this war as soon as possible. They want our troops redeployed. They want us to alleviate the suffering of innocent Iraqis. And they want us to finally tell the Iraqi people that they must be engaged in their country's destiny. The future of Iraq must ultimately be determined by them, not by us. And I want to conclude by quoting a good friend of mine and a fellow colleague, the distinguished chairman of the Armed Forces Committee, Ike Skelton. And in a recent statement, he said, Only the Iraqis can change the situation there and bring lasting security to their nation. I remain convinced that a gradual and responsible redeployment of U.S. forces is the best way to help the Iraqis take responsibility for their security and to restore the full strength of our military. Madam Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.